Hello and welcome to the Geek Legion of Doom. This is an action movie review. Today we're going to be having a look at Mortal Kombat, which was one of the early movies to be based on video games. Now you have had Super Mario before this one, but this one I think is still stands as possibly one of the better adaptations of a video game. So if you've not seen, well, if you've not played the game before, which I'm sure you probably have, but just for the two of you that haven't, the game is essentially a one-on-one fighting game where there's a variety of colourful opponents and you basically fight to death. And what made the game so unique was it was very gory for its time. So the basic premise of the film is a number of human champions that are selected to fight in a sort of cross-world tournament where the fate of our world hangs in the balance. So another realm is called Otherworld, I think it is, and it's headed by a sorcerer called Shang Tsung. Now, essentially, the story is just string together various fight scenes. But to be honest with you, sometimes the game films tend to sort of spin off in their own sort of made-up stories, and they don't really become that good at adaptations of the game. This one, keeping it fairly simple, is actually fairly faithful to the game. Now, when this came out, this was actually revered as one of the better martial art films that came from America, even if you took out the game side. I remember reading in martial arts magazines at the time that the actual choreography and the fight scenes were actually considered pretty good. So if you're a martial arts fan, I think you'll get a kick out of this one. See what I did there? Now I think if you're a gamer and you're a Mortal Kombat fan, certainly the first film at least is pretty good. So you have a sort of three main sort of leads, if you like. There's a Johnny Cage, who is based on, well, in the game he was actually based on Van Damme, ironically not played by Van Damme in the film. There's this kind of the main guy, played by, I think the actor's name is Robin Shou, I believe, and he's kind of the main hero. And you have Sonya Blade, who is the female lead, and they're all shepherded by Rayden, who is the kind of the god of electricity, who I think was originally a bad guy in the game, but he's kind of since then been sort of made to be more sort of on the heroic sort of side. And they have to go through various baddies to overcome Shang Tsung, who is the big bad guy at the end. And from there it's essentially a series of fight scenes threaded together by a fairly flimsy plot. But like I said, the fight scenes are quite fun. They're all quite different. They have different backgrounds, just like the game. So it does make it quite fun. And if you're a fan of the characters, I think they're fairly well represented. You've got your Scorpion, your Sub-Zero, your Kano. So they're pretty much all in there. The sub-boss, if you like, is a guy called Goro, who is a four-armed puppet monster, who isn't the best, but at least this was the days before CGI. However, on the subject of CGI, this is one of the earlier films to kind of use it, and it hasn't dated well. There's a character called Reptile, who before he becomes a kind of humanoid ninja, is basically a little reptile lizard. But it's high, but he's completely CGI and it looks terrible. It actually looks like a cartoon, Roger Rabbit. It actually looks like it came out of Roger Rabbit. It's pretty terrible. So that hasn't dated that well. The interesting with this one, the soundtrack was massive when it came out. It was one of the best-selling soundtracks because it had a mixture of dance and sort of quite heavy metal. So it was a good mix, but it was pretty popular. It was one of the best-selling movie soundtracks, certainly of the year, maybe longer than that. I quite like this. This is the definition of what I would say a guilty pleasure is. It's a good fun film if you're into that sort of thing. If you're probably a girlfriend, or no offence if there's any ladies watching this, it's probably not going to be too fussed about this. In the majority of cases, I would argue, it's just going to be a dumb action film that probably younger male audiences will probably get a kick out of. But it's certainly not something you'll have to pay too much attention to just to get a kick out of it. Now, with that in mind, I would say it has got some rewatchability, and you can, it's fun just to watch the fight scenes. My favourite one is the reptile fight scene, which I think is the best, and that's probably got the best music in it as well. So, like I said, this review is probably going to be a little higher than you might see in stuff like Rotten Tomatoes and all that. But I quite like this film, so I'm going to give this one a 6.5 out of 10. Let me know what you think of it. What did you think of the sequels equally as well? Let me know in the comments. I look forward to hearing you next time. Bye for now.